Welcome back. Came back, got a new haircut. Also got a Christmas gift from my good friend Tom Penneries. So it's very productive so far, but now we have part two. And here, this is the picture. Maybe I haven't shared it, but there you go with Allie and AJ with love from. And they commented on my pants, which I wore that in particular to match with that shirt that I got when I went to see them for their Touch at the Beat tour. So again, just lovely, lovely humans. And I recommend, yeah, giving their stuff a listen, especially their new stuff. If you're just like, oh, that's Disney pop, then try their new stuff. Just to see where they are. I think they're just great artists. Okay, so let's do some listener emails because this will transition well to talking about Birds of Prey because Kelly Thompson somewhat did a listener email, which responded, and then that will transition because it was via Twitter, ex-Twitter, that will transition well to talking about something that happened there. So it's all connected. So I only have some YouTube comments on episode 241, part one. We've got Bagels After Midnight, who is my now. I did call him my what was it? Publicity stunt boyfriend, but I think it doesn't work as well. It doesn't really slide off the tongue. I think emergency contact would be great, which he was for that 5K that I did. So I think we'll say Harry is my emergency contact. I think that works well. So this is what he says. In my defense, the sea slug was a dangerous sea slug, poisonous and multi-fanged. I knew better than to approach it like a friendly dog, like a certain pair of scientists in a certain alien prequel, but would Stella have overcome her instinct for affection? Quote, it's my life's goal to befriend all animals, end quote. Stella once told me over Chardonnay at the Linmar estate in Sonoma Valley. And I've remembered that ever since because, while too bashful to voice it at the time, I shared the same dream. It's been a difficult journey with trials and tribulations by way of, for example, sea slug bites. One knows how to extract slug venom from the victim's neck, and our relationship may be headed in that direction, but this episode is doubtlessly, regrettably, a bump in the road. So that's in his defense of not showing me the sea slug. And I responded to him, there is no defense for you. And then on part two, Shayna from Earth 2 says, I honestly can't believe how good this run has been regarding Birds of Prey. I know it is still early, but I think Thompson is leading us in a very satisfying and entertaining way to a good place. I really can't wait to see how this arc ends and what it does to our team. Their dynamics amongst our members are fantastic in a way I could have never dreamed. Can't wait to see where Thompson takes us. If you'd like other Indigenous fiction, I recommend. Oh, ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay, so she is about to recommend someone that I don't recommend. I'll read it and then I'll explain why. So she says, I recommend Sherman Alexi's The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, autobiographical YA, Rebecca Roan Horses Between the Earth and Sky trilogy, fantasy, and Louise Erdix, The Round House. I also have to plug Tony Hillerman's detective books, Joe Leaphorn and Jim Chi. Hillerman wasn't indigenous, but he was honored by the Navajo Nation for depicting their culture with respect and exposing it to the world at a time when there was even less representation and it was more difficult for Native voices to be heard. So thank you, because yeah, I've been thinking about and talking to other people about Indigenous people representation and things like that. So I appreciate that. So the reason why I'm not going to read Sherman Alexie, and I've struggled with seeing those recommendations elsewhere, both at school, at university, some of the classes where he is recommended or talked about in articles and things like that is he is someone who was on the bad side of Me Too. He was brought under fire for some activities. And this is one of those things where I can't get behind death of the author. I think honestly, I really don't ever. I think even though he is a representative of it, I'm not going to read. I mean, I'm already giving him a platform by mentioning his name here, but I'm not going to read. I wouldn't bring it up in, if I were an English teacher, I'd find something else other than him because of that. And I know some of the articles, like I brought it up, man, where did it must have been in my cross culture education. I think there was an article that brought him up on something. And then I even in one of my discussion posts said, like, in the article authors, in the journal authors' defense, this was before that stuff had come to light. So, like, we can't really get on her, but, at what point do we stop sharing this man's work? So obviously, nothing against you there, Shayna, but I personally am not going to be reading or recommending anything by that man. And I mean, to each his own. Everyone's gotta do what they want. So I would rather lift other people up than him. So yeah, very unfortunate that there's a dearth obviously of indigenous representation, and then someone that is in that demographic has to go and do that. So there you go. So I'll move on from that. And the last thing was just after I had posted the previous episode, and I had that one question about, I can't even remember what the quote was, but it was about Barda and Wonder Woman. And I think Harley was talking to Barda and was asking, I guess, what would happen if you went toe to toe. And the word push was used, and I took it to mean like Wonder Woman would just push her. But it was I was corrected, which is great. I appreciate that. And it was good because it will come into play in this issue. So Kelly Thompson actually responded to that and said, thanks for reading. So glad you're enjoying it. Regarding push, a push means you're pretty evenly matched, that it will be a close fight to win. So I did not know that particular definition of push. That's great. And then also regarding transgender Amazons, Kelly Sue DeConnick's Amazon Historia series addresses this in incredible ways. And I did read that. So I think we're good. So the answer is yes. Themyscira would have transgender women on there. And I had asked I asked like two different people. One person said they probably wouldn't because it's probably an island full of turfs, which is like real bad. And then I also asked Professor Carolyn Coca, and she said that it depends on the writer, which I fully agree with that. And then she had also listened to that episode and said Philippus was actually a creation before this, so the US would have been something. Can't remember the person. Let's see here. Professor Coca said Philippus was created by Perez. And although he was clear about wanting the Amazons to be more diverse, I never thought about the us until you mentioned it. So the US there. I don't know what he intended, if anything, about her gender. He wrote her as the lead general protector of Hippolyta, trainer of Diana. I think I read somewhere that some old classic there was a Philippus with an IS, so I assume that's where he got it, which IS as an ending because of that declension could be masculine or feminine. So and then the pronunciation with it is so he could have transitioned it there. Yes, I do, however, think even after reading the Kelly Sue DeConnick's writing there, unless I missed something, I don't think that a transgender male Amazon would be allowed to continue to reside on Themyscira, which is both positive and negative. Obviously, we're kicking somebody off, but it's positive in the way of like, well, they're a man, and so like their true gender has been embrace. So in that way, it's a positive thing, even though we're ejecting someone from that society. So yes, I have learned a great deal so far, and so we are yes on the trans people on Themyscira, which is great. So let's actually get into Birds of Prey, Volume 5, Number 4, Megadeth, Part 4. And here we are. Let me share this little guy. And here we have it, right? So Barda v. Diana, who will win? Um, Man, there are some amazing scenes in here, in particular with the fighting for sure. So, writer Kelly Thompson, art Leonardo Romero, colorist Jordi Belair. The publisher synopsis is the Birds versus the Amazon Warriors. Chaos reigns as the first mission for the Birds of Prey has unsurprisingly gone sideways. Even with the collective battle prowess of her handpicked team, did Black Canary bring enough firepower to fight their way off the mascara? We'll see, because the answer is not answered, or the answer is not given to us in this particular issue. So it's interesting that I will say what I have said the past 3 issues, which is in regards to Zealot, that she's just a big old question mark for me. And that's again raised because we have this scene right here, that she and Diana clearly have a past, given Diana tells her she's forbidden from the island. And then later she says she's been in a cell before, or she says, I've been here before, which could either mean she's been in a cell before, she's been in Themyscira before. But either way, it's sort of the same thing. So she's been here before. So what's going on here? Still, I don't know her history. So I say this is interesting because in my laziness, which I've been pretty clear about, to find a synopsis for the previous issue, number 3, I saw a review that gave issue 3 a low rating. And among other reasons, actually cites the fact that Thompson puts too much history and characters' pasts into the story. Now, while that reviewer stated this as a negative, I actually cite this as a positive. I feel like Thompson actually does a good job of balancing new and veteran readers. And the fact that Zealot and her motives are a mystery to me keeps me coming back and keeps me engaged. Now, if answers are never given, then, I will have a problem and I'll be asking Thompson some questions. But I'm assuming right now that Thompson is going to follow through with this. It's also a funny reminder looking at this review. I skimmed it. I think it was by a man, that there are differing opinions in the world of fandom. I didn't like New 52 Batgirl. I know others loved it. They loved the dark tone. And I love this run with Birds of Prey, and others may not. But, so I'm going to take a little discursus, diatribe, segue. May I remind others, especially in light of a weird and toxic ex-Twitter conversation that happened Friday, maybe, between Thompson and, I hesitate to say quote unquote fans, that we should be kind to creators and maybe not dissect syntax and semantics unless we're giving a grade on a paper. Donovan had sent me a post that was in particular about, I think, issue 7. Solicit had come out that shows Batgirl fully. So hashtag Carolyn knows. And I think immediately, I think the thing after that was something about, we owe Thompson an apology with, maybe coming after her about we as in fandom not having Barbara. And then it seemed I was barely following along, but then he sent something else, and then it was really going after, it seemed like not assuming good intent on behalf of Thompson and a lack of representation, obviously, but really going after her being ableist and yeah, dissecting things that she was saying. Why is Barbara as Batgirl not Oracle? And, first of all, I think sometimes, not all the time, we have to be careful. I had a discussion with someone recently about this. We should assume good intent. On the behalf of creators, I think we should also look at previous history. And Thompson really has given us no indication that she would be ableist or she'd be like against having Barbara as Oracle. Barbara is in a tricky position right now, which is something that Thompson actually brings up continuity wise because she's Batgirl and flinging herself around elsewhere. How can she be Oracle over here? We don't know. Like the solicitation, it's just a cover in a tagline. Like you cannot assume too much. We could go the route of Batgirls where we see various aspects of her mobility because she was still Batgirl there, but she was also Oracle sometimes. That's still a possibility. I think also, and I am guilty of this. So everything that I'm saying is not me being holier than thou, but also being someone who was doing similar things to this with New 52 and Gail Simone. And so I think like I've obviously learned from that and I recognize that that's not the thing to do. But we also put a lot of pressure on creators as if they are the god of the creation. And I think we need to realize that it's maybe 50% that create. I think even that's too high a percentage, but you've got editorial and the powers that be making certain decisions that creators often don't have a say in. We know this from Simone. We know this from other Batgirl creators not being allowed to go to the Batman Summit. I know, some other stuff in terms of this particular book, just from an interview that happened. So it's yeah, I think we gosh, let's just be open-minded and also not go after Kelly Thompson. This is why, creators, it's great when they're open and are willing to talk to us. But this is why they decide not to do that anymore because it's toxic. So let's be kind and assume good intent here. And wait and see what happens with Barbara. So that's all I ask. So okay, that's the end of my thing there. This is why I also probably stay off social media, frankly, but here we go. Let's continue. We do see what else was in Dinah's bag of tricks. These balls here that are called Banshees, part Zatanna, part Dinah, but it definitely reminds me back when Dinah's Canary Cry was damaged on account of longbow hunters, that she had tools like this where she would throw things and they would have a sonic cry. So I don't know if Thompson is specifically harkening back to that, but I did like that little call, at least for me. So after my previous review, as I talked about, Thompson corrected me on push or using it properly, and I'm glad that she did because otherwise I would have been like, what's going on here? She said she couldn't have moved Diana. So here we have it. This Barta Diana fight. Woo boy. It's intense. It's brutal. It is well choreographed, artistically designed. It's beautiful. It's amazing. I mean, it's so dynamic. Some things you don't need to see anything like just this fist and hair and some blood there. I love when Bane breaks Batman's back. So this is also an amazing homage. And I'm just like, goo. Barda breaking, I mean, or there's a crack. So potentially maybe she's just giving her some chiropractic help. But yeah, this is nuts. This is nuts. And then I think we even, I mean, this is crazy to just this almost one hit punching, knocking her out, and just again how it's designed and the layouts and everything, just amazing. And then I think we even step it up a notch. I mean, the brutality is not there, but we have Cass and Diana. And Cass has to, because I think she's smart enough to realize that hand to hand, she's not going to fare too well against Diana's strength, but she's using her ninja skills and subterfuge rather than direct confrontation. But and she's doing some great things here, but then when she is smacked against the tree, when does this happen? Again, just yeah, one hit. I'm hoping that Diana pulled her punch. I'm sure she did compared to Barda, but and then yeah, Cass just getting laid out and hitting that tree. I do worry about her. She just says her ears are ringing at the end of the issue, but I do feel like maybe she should get her ribs checked as well. I do think each issue I should start picking out favorite Harley Quinn quotes. In particular, I think this one, my favorite, happens in this splash page, which again, very dynamic and fun. She says, quote, "There's so many of them, they're like extremely attractive roaches." And then later on even says, "Sorry, beautiful roach, it's not personal," as she hits somebody. So I'll have to try to remember to do this, but yeah, the Harley quotes, I'm living for them here. So I think my question, because I do have questions, I think with each issue, is this scene, the Barda and the lasso. Now, symbolically, I definitely understand this scene because Barda, she's not one to submit. She is a top 100%, but I do wonder why she resists answering the question when even she says Barda speaks only the truth. Plus, she dares Diana, she says, and see the truth if you dare. She dares Diana to hear the truth. So I feel like maybe the actions contradict the words. And I wonder, if Diana had just said or asked Barta straight up, "What are you doing here?" Barta would have just maybe told her. But it's, yeah, kind of interesting here. So that would be kind of my only question of maybe not fully understanding, I think, this scene. So Stella, me, was right about Megara being one of the Furies. So we are going with that. We learn a bit more about the threat and what Sin has to do with it all. But obviously, there's still enough mystery to keep us going. And it'll be interesting once we reach the end of this arc, which I'm now assuming is 6, once we look at this holistically, whether we can kind of pull back and be like, oh, maybe there were too many issues and we could have cut down. But enough is like, because we are kind of breadcrumbing a bit, like little details are given to us. But again, this story and the writing, the art, it's also engaging, that even if I am being given breadcrumbs, I'm completely engaged and still like, I can't wait to see what's happening here. Questions about, oh yeah, communication between the island and Dinah are answered because Sin was there and Dinah wasn't being told that Sin was there, but actually they had tried or potentially maybe tried. It seems like maybe Penelope was um either bad or she was being manipulated by Megara and did not share that communication. So that's answered. And then these manacles here, I do wonder what they're made of. They look kind of magical, but then I think when they escape, oh, maybe not. Yeah, I mean, they're made of I guess they are solid. So I am not sure. I don't know. This Cass was great in here. She doesn't play a huge role, but even this, where Donna finally asks, "Where's Cass, by the way?" Like everyone was there, and then she finally realizes, and Cass was never even in the cell to begin with. Picture perfect Batgirl, I feel like. And I also like this scene where let's see here, we see Was it not here? I thought so. Dinah and her leadership, yeah, right here where she's actually checking in on Barda. So I think also we get to see who is Dinah as a leader, and so checking in on her. And it's also a great, I don't know if Thompson wrote this into her script or just artistically we got this, but that bandage on the nose of Barda, I think also shows the love and the compassion at the very least of the Amazon. So even if you are, erstwhile or temporary enemies, that they're going to care for you once they put you in there because they patch her up. Let's see. Yeah, and then I guess just at the very end, we do see Sin kind of out and about, learning more about this because she's with Philippus and Diana, and then she is supposed to go over here, but she's not there yet. So at the end of the issue, she's supposed to go. Sorry, she's supposed to go and find Dinah, but she's not by the time they get out. So I don't know where Sin is, which makes me a bit nervous. But we do see at the end of this the stakes, the actual stakes of this mission. We've been being told about it, but visually, now that we see this fury and that Diana, this great warrior who basically has knocked out all the birds, and is kind of the leader of Themyscira, uh, is under the control of or is incapacitated by this fear. I think now we realize, like, oh wow, yeah, yeah, this could be a problem. So I think those are all my points on this particular issue. Obviously, art wise, I try to talk about it as much as possible, but it's like everything I see, I just love it with the art. I hope that Romero is able to stay on for a long time. I think I'm going to give this 9.5 out of 10. Unlike Harley's grade for the mission, which was a 0 out of 10. Won't do again. It was definitely a beat 'em up issue. We knew it was going to happen. Okay. But between the hits, I think that there are some great character moments, not to mention like I said, the still amazing art. And there was one box that grammatically I didn't care for as much. But because just I would have rephrased it because it sounded a bit weird, but because of my diatribe on dissecting syntax and semantics, I've decided that I will not be a hypocrite and I'll just let it go. So, but that's just, the teacher in me for sure. So again, we'll recommend and we'll continue to recommend this book. Okay, next up, anime watch list. The Boy and the Heron, saw that in theaters. Day came out the 8th as a celebration of the end of my semester this semester. My grad semester, I should say. So that was great. Synopsis: Mihito, a young 12-year-old boy, struggles to settle in a new town after his mother's death. However, when a talking heron, voiced by, would you believe, Edward Cullen himself, Robert Pattinson, informs Mihito that his mother's still alive, he enters an abandoned tower in search of her, which takes him to another world. So it's Miyazaki, it's Ghibli, his final one based off of, is it This Is How We Live or How I Live, which is, or at least his experience of reading it, because I read that book in preparation for this, but maybe like a year ago, and not exactly like this. So it does make there's a little Easter egg with that book in here. Still kind of, working through it. It's definitely a film that I want to see again. Did see the dub, so I was interested in having Robert Pattinson, and there are other people that come back, like Willem Dafoe and Christian Bale. Trying to think if they're Mark Hamill, that have been in other Ghibli dubs, and so I did see thematically some similarities between this and Suzume. So also trying to kind of separate those because I did really love Suzume. But yeah, highly recommend. And I would say if I were to compare it with another Miyazaki or Ghibli, Spirited Away is kind of that feel as well. So there you go, recommend. And then finally, we've got literature recommendations. I've like changed my reading goal multiple times. I feel like I'm Close. I could make it to 100 books this year, but I don't know if I can. I'm like reading two or three at the moment, so maybe I'll make it. Goodreads is freezing on me. Here we go. Having read. Now I've got to think of where I was. Did I do the color complex? 27. Oh, oh, the bad word. I think I. Oh my gosh. Definitely talked about Colleen Hoover. Was that the last one that I talked about? Um, okay, so we'll start with this one, which is it's the N word and it's fully spelled out. The Strange Career of a Troublesome Word by Randall Kennedy. I don't think I've talked about this. I found it cited in a chapter of my multicultural education text. I was interested in it as someone who has struggled having a class where it's kind of bandied about by people of color because any white person that was saying that I'd be yelling at them. But yeah, it's interesting to see its history and especially in different topics like politics, law, and education. And Kennedy, a black man, he argues against eradicationists who believe that it should never be used ever and says it can be harnessed for activism or anti-racism or in an educational setting, right? So he does give an example of a professor that had um a class kind of about pejoratives, and this had been mentioned, and then he came under fire. Some students complained about him, which was ironic given the fact that it was a class about pejoratives. So what place does it have, especially in education, if you're talking about a word, or even in a law class and how it's being used, like should you be allowed to use it? Now I neither want nor need the privilege to say it, but I did read it in terms of like um better understanding, I guess, why it's used, especially by that population, kind of how it's been reclaimed, and then how I can argue against using it in a classroom setting from them, right? Just maybe that it's an inappropriate word for that particular environment. So that was the main reason. Also read The Color Complex, The Politics of Skin Color Among African Americans by Kathy Russell, Midge Wilson, and Ronald Hall. It's been on my list for a while, and then I got a library card from someplace that I don't want to say because I don't live there and I don't want to get myself or them in trouble. But I'm not using it for bad purposes. I just wanted to have more options. But colorism is something that I was really only recently made aware of, probably in like 2020. And so just investigating that a bit more, colorism and texturism, things like that. Multicultural education, issues and perspectives. I recommend it even if you're not in education. Robert E. Lee and Me, A Southerner's Reckoning with the Myth of the Lost Cause by Ty Seidul. And this is a man who, see, at VMI, he was in the military, and this was lent to me without me asking, and it just took me a very long. I mean, I started reading it in September and just finished it, so I just was not like fully reading it, but it was interesting of him growing up, basically seeing that, as many Southerners do, Robert E. Lee as a Southern god, and then kind of coming to terms with that, as well as the Civil War and what it was actually about. Beowulf by Unknown, and translated by Seamus Heaney, and you can listen to Tom and I talk about that, and hashtag Gaelwolf. You'll see what that is on the next required reading. Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons by Kelly Sue DeConnick and Phil Jimenez. Book Lovers by Emily Henry, which I liked. And I like that more than People We Meet on Vacation. And then finally, Mindfulness for Teachers, Simple Skills for Peace and Productivity in the Classroom by Patricia A. Jennings, who is or was a professor at UVA. And this was for fun. It wasn't for class. Recently came upon socially emotional learning, SEL for short, and that was one of the foci that you could pick For grad school, obviously, I have literacy as my focus. But someone in my thesis class spoke about it for her final presentation. And I had heard of it, but in negative terms by a Mother for Liberty on Instagram, that it's the new threat after CRT, critical race theory. And I was just like, why do people not like it? You know, what is, and so I want to know a little bit more. And it seems like a good thing. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. I think the main issue is not a lot of research, which there is research, but small focal groups. And it's really about sort of determining, like, self-determination of why you are acting this way or feeling this way, and then self-regulation. So also like examining why you're feeling this way or acting this way, and then getting back to a level playing field. And this is not only for students, but also for teachers to take moments. And this is great, like, especially for class management. I think reading that, it really helped me think better, understand that class management is like 90% observation, 10% action. Because if you have knee jerk reactions to what a student is doing, it might go poorly, especially if you don't have a relationship with that student. But if you are observing that student, obviously, if there is safety involved, you need to act quickly. But if you're observing what this person is doing, and also preemptively, like you are sensing that something's going to happen, observing, and then also considering, like, why is this person doing what they're doing? Because a lot of empathy, right? This understanding, like, what's going on at home. um if they're hungry, it's because they didn't have something to eat, or maybe they had to take care of their sibling because they're single parent and their parent is working, and so they're in charge of the sibling, and so now they are, sleeping in class, that sort of thing. So if you are observing first and then acting rather than reacting, uh better things will happen. And that was a great text for me, and I'm not sure I necessarily understand why social emotional learning would be a dangerous thing. So, but I think more study for me definitely needs to happen. And I'll probably reach back out to that classmate and ask her more specific questions. So I think that's what we got. Like I said, I'm reading, I think, 3 different books at the moment. I've got 2 manga that Donovan gave me for my birthday. So maybe I'll get to 100. I don't know. Thank you for listening. Remember, you can send any questions or comments to backrolltheoracle@gmail.com, or even comment on the YouTube videos. I'd love to hear what your goals are for 2024, or if you have any favorites of 2023. Anything. Like the show on Facebook, or follow it on Twitter or X-Twitter at Backroll the Oracle. Subscribe and be kind on Twitter. Good Lord, be kind. Subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Backroll the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. Thank you for listening to me for 14 years and 241 episodes. I do really appreciate you. Even if you don't reach out to me, I know you're out there, and I do this for me, but I also do this for you. So hopefully I can brighten your day a little bit, or educate you a little bit. And yeah, I just appreciate your time for sure. Happy holidays, and yeah, stay safe out there and love others. And until next time, fly on, Babs lovers.